Hi, I'm Leslie Maddox, and today I'll be doing a review of Handwriting Without Tears Cursive Success Workbook, along with my recommendations and best tips for using it in your homeschool. I used this workbook this past year with my oldest. He was in 4th grade at the time, and so this is a review of cursive skills. So this book is completed, just so you know, since we've already finished it. You'll notice that it has vertical rather than slanted, the more traditional slanted style of cursive. That's, I think, an important thing to note. If you don't like the look of that and don't want your child to learn that way, this may not be the book for you, because that is consistent with the previous book, cursive book we used, and this one as well. While it is a review book, it does have a different focus. It focuses more on connecting letters while it adds more language arts topics. So if we look at the table of contents, you see that there is some review here for forming the cursive letters. And by the way, they teach, you'll notice here that they're not in alphabetical order. Handwriting Without Tears teaches in developmental order, not alphabetical order for forming letters. So that's why that's like that. But so while there's a review here of doing the letters, they're not just writing the letters. So they're a little bit of review of forming the letters, but then we practice more putting those letters into words. So more of a focus on connecting and not just forming those letters in isolation. And there's also just a real short review of uppercase letters as well. Now, other than the handwriting, they do cover some language arts concepts, and you'll see most of them here in the sidebar, key to writing activities. So, I suppose that could be helpful if you're wanting to incorporate this or kind of connect it more tightly with other language arts subjects you're covering in your homeschool grammar. For example, there's talk about synonyms, antonyms, homophones. So if we go to the synonyms page, for example, besides writing the words themselves, and which is good practice, they're learning a little bit about synonyms and what they are, and kind of coming up with the synonyms for each word. So there is some connection with your other language arts studies. It goes on into paragraph writing, writing a letter, more about paragraphs, and a poem at the end. So I thought some of those were nice aspects of this workbook. A couple I didn't love as much. See if I can find one. Section on paragraph writing, like here, where the student gets the first paragraph and then like the first sentence and other paragraphs, and I'm assuming they needed to finish those paragraphs. Now there is an accompanying teacher's instruction manual with this. I didn't purchase that. That may be necessary for pages like this one, but in our situation, we just kind of got information about microscopes and came up with some sentences to add to the paragraphs, and that's how we approached that. I don't feel that I really needed that in this workbook. I probably should have skipped it, but I'm somebody that likes to finish things, so that's what we did. This page is nice right here in the beginning. It has the entire cursive and manuscript forms of the alphabet, the way taught in Handwriting Without Tears. And this, I thought, was just a nice reference. And my son did refer to it at times. It's also at the back right here. Since they're learning, especially some letters that they don't make as often, like the Q. It was nice for him to have a reference to go to, and sometimes I would have to remind him. I did eventually buy him a desk strip to put on his desk. It was created by, I bought it from Handwriting Without Tears, and it has the alphabet, uppercase and lowercase, on it. for him to refer to, and he started using that instead. So that was a nice little supplement I purchased. Now, as far as teacher prep goes, if you plan to use the teacher's guide, you're going to want to spend some time with it. I don't have the teacher's guide, but if you want to use some of the activities in there, I understand it has more multi-sensory activities you can do as part of the teaching. And if your student needs that, you may want to get that teacher's guide. So if you're going to purchase that, you're going to want to spend some time with it and plan out what activities you want to do with your student, in addition to this workbook work. But for us, I just purchased the workbook, and with the workbook, most pages are open and go. There are several spelling to cursive sections. Let's see if I can find one of those, like here, where you give the student a word to write in cursive, and you're even instructed. So this isn't a spelling test. You tell them how to spell it, and they just have to write it in cursive without first seeing it in cursive. And the words need to be words that they've reviewed so far, and you'll see on the previous page what letters they've reviewed so far. So for pages like that, you might want to have some words ready to go. I was never real good at preparing for those. I would just look at the letters and think, what's a word I can make out of those letters? Sometimes I would take spelling words that he's been working on that fit these parameters and use those. So if I was going to prepare ahead of time, I would do that. But a lot of times I just kind of came up with a word. And then there's usually like an extreme challenge word here. It's a little extra hard for them to write. A little extra difficult. So that would be something that you may want to look at ahead of time and have some words prepared in advance. For how much time the student needs on this workbook for each session, it should take less than 15 minutes to complete each time, depending on how you use it. We did a page a day. If your student's really struggling with that, you could just do part of a page a day. But we generally did just one page a day. Even when we did the paragraph writing, we did just like one paragraph a day. So I try to keep it short and sweet. Students that do well with the written word and with visual learning methods should do well with just this workbook. But if your student needs more interactive or physical methods of learning something, they may need the multisensory activities that are described in the teacher's guide. So just kind of be aware of that. Also, like most early learning curricula, Handwriting Without Tears does require one-on-one teaching where you're sitting with your student. And with handwriting, I always recommend when they're developing a skill, developing the ability to form letters on their own, to watch them while they're doing that, so that you can correct any mistakes. Since this was his second year of doing cursive, I did that less and less with him over the year. But starting out, you may, especially doing the review, a lot of the review pages in the beginning, you may want to watch and make sure that they haven't developed any bad habits, especially if you're noticing that a particular letter looks a little bit funny. It may be because they're forming it incorrectly. And like I always tell my kids, the purpose of handwriting is to communicate with other people and with yourself. You know, if you're writing something down because you want someone else to be able to read that later, or you want to be able to read that later. And so if you're not forming your letters correctly, you're not communicating. So that's why it's important. I do explain that to them, that's why it's important. This isn't just me telling you to do something boring. This is me trying to help you be able to communicate with people in the future. Now, if your student prefers learning through the spoken word, you can accommodate them by talking through how to form these letters. So, if they want to learn independently, they can just read this. But if they do better hearing the instructions, you can tell them, start at this top line, you go down, and then you travel up and bump at the top. They give you all that information. So all you have to do really is just read what's on the page. And so a student that really likes learning that way by hearing the instructions how to do something might prefer for you to talk that through to them. That might help them be very aware of how to form these letters. Since this is a book about furthering cursive skills, I would not recommend it to children that have not yet learned how to write in cursive, or that learn in a different style than was taught by Handwriting Without Tears. Since this book assumes that your student is familiar with this style of cursive, with cursive in general, and then this style of cursive. So I wouldn't recommend it for those students. One of my best tips for using cursive success, I've already covered a little bit, and that's to keep a close eye on your students' letter formation and connections also between letters, because it's important for your student to learn how to do it properly before they create some bad habits, because it's very easy to create bad habits, but it's very difficult to break those bad habits. One of my other best tips would be to keep the lesson short, no more than 15 minutes. And if that means they do less than 1 page a day, especially later on in the book, let's say a page like this, they might want to do this page one day and then, or this section one day and then this section the next day. If that's what's going to keep your child attentive and willing to make the effort to complete this workbook, then that might be the best thing to do. I think more important than doing a certain amount in one day is being consistent with it. Instead of having a marathon handwriting session, it's more important that there's practice sessions over time, consistent, regular practice handwriting sessions over time. I think that's more important as far as learning and being comfortable with writing in cursive. If you want to see more videos like this one, where I give you my tips and recommendations for how to use certain books and curriculum in your homeschool, go ahead and tap on the playlist to the side, because that is where I will keep all of these videos. And I will talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.